What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. So this is my second ever video, and I guess I'm kind of on this consciousness kick, trying to find different clips that might answer some questions, but every time I watch one they bring up more questions. So the first video was regarding basically consciousness and how it pertains to things. Can a thing exist in reality that there is no awareness of? Can it just be there, right? Or does consciousness actually bring these things into existence? In other words, if there's no awareness of it, it doesn't exist yet, right? So when I saw the title of this clip, does consciousness cause the cosmos, I thought maybe I would get some answers here. This is an interview with Lothar Schaefer. If you've already seen this interview, you can go right ahead and skip forward to my questions. All right, I will see you on the other side. Let's watch this one.
Lothar, let me tell you what some people have told me, that you need consciousness to understand quantum physics, that quantum physics is based on an observer making a measurement. Quantum physics is needed to explain the unique nature of consciousness, how we feel things. And therefore, consciousness becomes the fundamental reality. And so the conclusion of all of that is then consciousness is not a derivative of evolution and matter, but rather consciousness sits at the foundation of reality and causes all the matter and forces of the universe. What say you?
The claim that consciousness creates reality,
Yes.
I think is wrong. Now, it has a foundation in some phenomena, and I think it arose in the following way. When you pursue the nature of matter to smaller and smaller particles, you end up with elementary particles. All of a sudden, matter is lost. How is it lost? Because when a particle is on its own, that means it doesn't interact with anything in a vacuum. An electron in a vacuum, in my research, we work with electron diffraction. We built an electron diffraction instrument. When the electrons went into that instrument, they became waves. What kind of waves? These waves are described by Schrödinger's wave mechanics. These waves are mathematical forms. They don't have units of matter or energy. They are just forms, information. They spread out. So first you had a particle, then you have this wave, it is spread out. You can't see these waves. These waves, they form a non-empirical realm. Because when you interact to take a look, the wave is destroyed and a particle comes out. So how does that happen? You have to understand, the pioneers, they were overwhelmed by this. They said, well, maybe it is because you need consciousness that makes something real.
Yes, exactly.
First of all, there's always something real, but an invisible reality. Those forms exist. Secondly, you don't need consciousness. All you need is an interaction of the wave with its environment. Because you might say, okay, if particles, molecules spontaneously become waves, how come my body exists? How come? Because all these atoms interact with each other. They keep each other honest. One wants to go, the other one get it back.
Yeah, and if there was no consciousness around, they would still do the same thing.
Exactly. There is no consciousness in here that keeps it. Interaction with the environment creates empirical reality out of a non-empirical form.
Okay.
An importance of these forms is they are non-empirical. We have to think there is a background of the world, of the whole universe, that is a realm of forms. Everything visible comes out of these, actualizes out of them. The forms, they have wave-like potentials. We don't really know what they are because they're non-empirical. But the idea is the whole background of the universe is a wholeness, where all these forms hang together like the thoughts in your mind.
Yeah, and that's why some people say, because this is so powerful and so strange, that that's what is the real reality that generated what we think is matter.
Well, okay. You also had another point, and that is that the source of consciousness? I think that these forms can actualize in the visible world as material structures, and they actualize in our minds as thoughts. Why can we understand the empirical world? Because the thoughts and the empirical order have the same source, a cosmic background out of which all of this is coming.
That seems to argue that consciousness, or something non-material, non-empirical, you can't sense it, is the cause of everything.
Yes.
You said you don't agree with that.
Wait, non-material, non-empirical, yes. Um, Consciousness, well, the forms hang together. There may be a cosmic consciousness, but it doesn't create the empirical world. That's my issue. There is a cosmic consciousness, but it doesn't create the empirical world. But the empirical world is an emanation out of this realm of forms.
So the realm of forms is different than consciousness.
Okay, the question of the role of consciousness is complex. When you have a particle in a vacuum become a non-material wave, and when somehow a particle comes out of this again, you do not need consciousness to make this happen. That is often meant when people talk about consciousness created reality,
Yeah.
because all that has to happen is that this wave, which was a particle, interacts with something in its environment,
And immediately.
and the particle comes out. It doesn't need a human mind.
Okay.
So in that sense, consciousness has nothing to do with the basis of physics. However, when you have a particle and it becomes a wave, you can say, what kind of wave is that? Well, the wave is a pattern of information. Information is normally for a mind. There's a pattern of information in a cosmic dimension. Could that mean there is a cosmic mind? And so, yes, in that sense, you can say there is a background of the world that is a consciousness, and we can only suspect, in all likelihood, it creates a visible world. But you have to distinguish this from the view that human consciousness is needed. No, it is not needed. Like the particles in all material things, they stay particles. They may, for a short time, become waves, and then the others get them back because they interact.
No human consciousness was
No
involved.
human consciousness involved.
No.
We do not need consciousness to create real things. The particles in here, they don't need consciousness. They stay particles. At the same time, that the background of the universe is mind-like, and that means it is possible that it is a consciousness. That we cannot exclude. And if it is, then it will also appear in our mind and create the empirical world.
I love when scientists are on their heels. I love it. So, our friend Lothar started off with very, straightforward. Consciousness does not create reality, does not create the cosmos, whatever it is, right? Talking about the experiments that he does with particles in a vacuum, and if we know anything, I don't even want to get this kind of like advanced, because I have a feeling that some people that might be watching this really are watching like from the beginning and don't even know maybe as much as I do, and I've researched a little bit, so I've got a little bit of knowledge. But he's talking about how the waveform, the wave function, how particles in a vacuum, in other words, just the particle with nothing observing it, just by itself in a vacuum, it will be a wave. Okay, so the particle becomes a wave, and this wave is basically a wave of possibility. The wave has no form, it has nothing, it's just information. You can't see it, you can't do anything, right? And with experiments that have been done, it has been realized that these particles that are basically waves when nobody's watching, as soon as they're observed, they collapse back into a particle. They become something, right? So he's talking about how he did experiments and how these waves, were in this vacuum, and or the particles were in the vacuum and they were a wave, and then all they need is to interact with something in their environment, and then they will become a particle again. They will come back into reality. My question is, how do you know? If there's no consciousness there observing this, you're guessing. You're taking a guess. How do you possibly know? Okay, so double slit experiment. If you don't know about the double slit experiment, you can maybe look it up real quick. It's very easy to find. It's very simple to understand, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as these videos progress. But with the double slit experiment, they showed how you're shooting photons through these slits, and the slit, if you're not watching, they will just be a wave, and they'll interact with each other and bounce off of each other and create a wave pattern on a back wall. But if you're watching and you're shooting them through two slits, they will actually just hit the back wall right where those slits are, okay? So if you put a camera, a recording device on it, if there's no consciousness, you leave the room, there's nothing, and you just set this machine up to shoot these photons, and you put a camera, the act of being observed even with the camera supposedly causes these photons to revert back to actual photons, not a wave, and they'll leave just two lines on the backboard where they went through these slits. So it's like, okay, so how can you say consciousness is necessary for the collapse of that wave function, or for those particles or photons or whatever to become what they are in reality, when there was nothing there but a camera? A camera is not conscious, right? This is a really good question. Does that prove that consciousness does not need to be there? Some people will say it does. If you want to get really deep, is the video of this happening a wave function, a function of possibility? And what you could see on that video could be a wave pattern on the back of that wall going through the two slits, or it could be a pattern of two photons just going through the two slits. It could be either one of those until you watch the video. Now you're introducing consciousness again, and that reality, okay, collapses, the waveform collapses into a reality that you're expecting to see. Maybe that's a stretch. Maybe that's a little crazy. Maybe that's not even the way it works, right? It's the purpose of these videos. If that's not the way it works, explain it to me. Tell me how it works. Tell me why that's right. Tell me why that's wrong. But as you notice, as we went on, and Robert was not grilling him, but asking him to clarify the things that he was saying, which felt often like he was pulling them freshly out of his butt. A lot of it was speculation, opinion, conjecture. This must be the way it is, and so I'm going to say it like this is the way it is. And then Robert would question him on it. Well, it's complex. Maybe there is a cosmic consciousness, but it's not human consciousness that does it. He backpedaled all the way through this thing, because it's such a tough thing for some scientists to admit that the answers here are not mathematical. The answers here are not scientific. They cannot be observed, right? They cannot be proven and demonstrated and repeated the way that they normally would want to prove a theory. They can't do that with this. And so they refuse to take the leap. And I'm not saying that they're right or they're wrong, but they refuse to take the leap and say, okay, what if there is something more to conscious that lies outside of our scientific understanding of it? What if there is something about it that is more fundamental? Maybe that's because there are pieces that are missing to all these theories that they have. There are holes in the theories. Consciousness being fundamental seems like it would fill all those holes, but they refuse to even entertain that. Okay. To me, if you're not entertaining every possibility with an open mind, not entertaining it trying to prove it wrong because you don't want it to be right, entertaining it with an open mind, if you're not doing that, you're not doing any of us any justice, because you're not going to find maybe the correct answers. You're going to find the answers that you want to find. The wave function is going to collapse in favor of what you're looking for it to. Okay. So are the questions answered? Nope. Questions aren't answered. And I'm feeling like it's going to be hard pressed to actually find the answers to these questions. I've watched a lot of these videos, and people The so-called professionals, the people who have done this for a living all their lives for 30, 40, 50 years, they don't all agree. So I'm really curious what your perspective is. If you would like to leave comments in the comment section, give me your ideas. I don't know that I'm going to read something in my comment section that's all of a sudden going to make everything make sense. But adopting other philosophies and perspectives helps us get closer to truth. All right, y'all. See you later.